SSM, and Curtis Electromusic, the soul within the sound of the 80s. Synthesizers were becoming mainstream during the 1970s, and much of the popular music was featuring the sonic sounds from the likes of the Mini Moog, the ARP 2600, and Oberheim's 2 and 4 voice. As synthesizer designs became more advanced, certain problems started to arise which needed to be addressed. Electronic music instruments would often get very hot inside the casing, and overheating issues would affect the tuning of the synthesizer and the reliability of the parts inside. Along with this, there was a need to be able to store complex patch settings for quick recall while playing with the band. In California, originating out of the Home Brew Computer Club, a small company called Solid State Music, SSM, was formed in 1974 by John Burgoon and Ron Dow. SSM's focus was to create boutique synthesizer chipsets, which could be used as the building blocks of a synthesizer design by the engineers working on these products. The goal was to give engineers the foundations for a design, but not limit them by also providing many options for differing unique design configurations. The first SSM product and first integrated synthesizer-specific IC was the SSM 2000 VCA. And although this saw limited use, it was used as part of the design for the SSM SB1 music board, which was used in early microcomputers such as the MSI 8080 with S100 bus, and enabled these machines to generate computer music with computer code. The SSM 2000 VCA design was refined with the help of Dave Rossum at eMuse Systems, and the new SSM 2010 VCA was released and used inside the new eMu modular system. Within months, a newer and more refined series of SSM chips were developed, with continued consultation by Dave Rossum. The 2020 VCA, the 2030 VCO, the 2040 VCF, and the 2050 envelope generator were released and immediately caught the eye of Dave Smith, who had started a small company, Sequential Circuits, in San Jose, California, building sequencers and memory recall systems for synthesizers. These new ICs proved to be very helpful in reducing the overall discrete circuitry required to build a synthesizer, and effectively launched an entirely new generation of synthesizer designs that could be much more portable and reliable. By using the series of SSM chips along with the Z80 CPU within the Prophet 5, Dave Smith was able to revolutionize synthesizer design, sound, portability, and features offered on the synthesizer within a single keyboard enclosure, something that had an incredible influence on musicians and music of this time. Within a very short time, other manufacturers such as Korg and Kawai jumped on board, using SSM chips within their new products. Korg's Mono Poly, Poly 6, and Trident famously featured SSM ICs, and in particular the 2044 filter, which gave these synths a smooth but dark tone that was very popular with musicians making sounds such as new wave. Many people say the SSM chips of the 70s had a wonderfully thick and ballsy sound. The SSM filters are often characterized as smooth and complex with a dark overtone. In the late 70s, with SSM chips being used in larger scale productions, it became clear that some of the SSM chips were notably unreliable or unstable, especially when exposed to high heat. This made tuning of these instruments more difficult and even failures common with the ICs. They were also unfortunately becoming harder to source, as the die lots during the manufacturing process were yielding less than 25% good chips at times. Regardless, SSM was the first manufacturer of custom synth ICs from a non-major producer such as Roland or Yamaha. And this opened the doors for what would be another revolutionary set of ICs from another small Californian company, Curtis Electromusic Specialties. Doug Curtis founded Curtis Electromusic Specialties in 1979, a boutique company that would leverage his knowledge of synthesizer design that he perfected as a graduate at Northwestern University. In the mid-70s, after winning a contest to design a semi-custom chip, Doug had 100 ICs created to help minimize a current synthesizer design he was working on. Doug was highly skilled at analog circuit design, and this led him to landing a job at Interdesign, who had sponsored the contest. After working on non-synth projects for 4 years, Doug eventually left Interdesign to return to his passion for music and electronics. Working closely and listening to the needs of designers such as Dave Smith and Tom Oberheim, Doug was able to create a new line of custom ICs that would aid them in the products they created. Curtis Electromusic's first IC was the 3310 envelope generator, created at the request of Tom Oberheim, and can be found in the 4 and 8 voice SEM programmer. Check out this Curtis ad from 1979, where they started selling the early line of ICs to synth kit maker Paya and the general public. The CEM3340 was a major breakthrough in reliability and functionality. Its temperature stability and oscillator consistency were much better than many of the bespoke designs several current manufacturers were using, and the features allowed synth manufacturers to use several of these in polysynth layout to bring down the overall cost and provide remarkable consistency between voices. The 3340 creates a sawtooth, triangle, square, and adjustable pulse waveforms, can be soft or hard synced, and operate on a linear or exponential voltage control, only requiring a few extra components to create the variations and settings required from the designer. For sequential, SSM ICs were becoming hard to source, as faulty chips often made it into the production line and had to be replaced. Temperature seemed to be a big issue with reliability. Thus, in 1980, Sequential Circuits redesigned the Prophet 5 to replace the SSM ICs with the full line of Curtis ICs in order to improve tuning and reliability. Oberheim first used the Curtis 3340 VCO in its OBSX synthesizer, and then later redesigned the OBX line as the OBXA, using the full product line of Curtis ICs. In the early 80s, manufacturers took to the Curtis chips full-on. Even big players such as Roland jumped on board, using the CEM chips in the SH101, MC202, Jupiter 6, and MKS80 Super Jupiter. Sequential used Curtis ICs for most of their designs in one way or another. Remarkably, a large percentage of 80s synthesizers shared the same fundamental building blocks, the Curtis ICs. In this way, Curtis music, in essence, had an incredible impact on the sonic sound of the 80s. Here's a list of some synthesizers, drum machines, and samplers that used Curtis ICs in their designs. Insonic Mirage and SQ80, Moog's Memory Moog, the Lindrum, the Elka Synthex, Oberheim's OBXA, OB8, OBSX, Matrix 12, and Expander, Roland's Jupiter 6, MKS80, SH101, and MC202, Sequential's Prophet 5 Rev 3, Prophet 600, Prophet T8, Pro 1, and dual manual Prophet 10, Waldorf's Wave and Microwave, the Rhodes Chroma and Polaris. Although configurable to operate in many different modes, the Curtis chips were so ubiquitous that it's not surprising that some synthesizers sounded very similar to others during this time frame. Comparing a Prophet 5 Rev 3 to an Oberheim OBXA, you will definitely find some sonic similarities, both incorporating a full array of Curtis ICs in their designs. The digital era of the late 80s and 90s closed a chapter on bespoke analog synthesizer designs, but as we now know, it would not be long before these circuits were looked at fondly once again. Doug Curtis unfortunately passed away in 2007. However, his legacy certainly lives on within the sound of so many legendary synthesizers built upon his IC designs. In recent years, the popularity of 80s sounding synthesizers has come back, and thus as well the desire for using authentic Curtis music ICs. In 2016, Doug's company On Chip Systems reissued the famous CEM 3340 version G VCO, and in 2019, it also re-released its famous CEM 3320 filter. Thanks to this, Sequential's re-release of the Prophet 5 Rev 4 uses both the on-chip CEM 3340 VCO as well as the 3320 filter. which can also be switched to the Dave Rossum 2140 filter, which is a clone of the original SSM 2040 for that original Rev 1 and Rev 2 Prophet sound. Many synthesizers from the 80s seem to have an analog heart and soul, and within this soul were the designs from SSM and Curtis Music. These ICs had a significant impact on synthesizer history as we now know it. Inspired by the sounds from these instruments, new electronic music was created that changed history forever.